Hello students, how are you? This is economics lesson video for grade 12, presented by me, Mr. Fitzmermes. It is for term 1, week 2 and lesson 4. In today's lesson, we are going to deal with the unit 3 topic, the industrial sector in Ethiopia, particularly definition of industrial sector and arguments of industrial sector versus with the rest of other economic sectors. Okay, students, as usual, let us briefly revise the previous lesson. In the previous session, we have dealt with the agricultural policies and strategies during the Derg and the PRDF government. In relation to the Derg period, there was a change in the official national ideology to the socialist principle, and the state control of the economy was overextended. There was a total domination and control of the state over various economic activities. Agriculture were part of that. And the comprehensive and minimum package projects, which were launched during the imperial regime, also continued here in the Derg period, but some of their names were being changed into the other one. Finally, all these minimum and comprehensive package projects were transferred to the Peasant Agricultural Development Extension Project, which were not effective, and it came to an end in 1988 because of shortage of funds and change of in the change in the administration structure. That was the reason for the collapse of the Peasant Agricultural Development Extension Project. Then the government also tried to organize the smallholder farming system in different socialist lines. There were associations and cooperatives for the purpose of collective production, marketing of agricultural output, and the distribution of agricultural input. For these three different purposes, the government tried to organize the smallholder farmer system into peasant associations, service cooperatives, and producers cooperatives. Again, this was not effective, and farmers or peasants were suffering from various problems. They were not enabled to make a decision in their own affairs. Poor leadership and embezzlement, and much emphasis were given for politics other than providing solution for their agricultural problems. Because of these reasons, the cooperatives were not effective. In general, we characterize the agricultural policies and strategies of the military government with six major different points. Nationalization of all private commercial farm was one of the major characteristics of the Derg period, and prohibition of private investment in agricultural sector, involuntary collectivization of peasants into peasant association, forced villagization in settlement, forced food grain quota delivery system, restriction of the movement of agricultural output were the major characteristics of the agricultural sector during the Derg period. This was what we try to see in relation to agriculture during Derg. Then, after government change in 1991, the transitional government were adopted a new economic policy. As we know, there was a general objective of replacing the command economy with economic system driving by market force. That was a basic change. In some drastical measures were been also taken during that period, like dissolution of producers in service cooperatives, encouragement of smallholders in private commercial farm, termination of public investment in state farm, adoption of abolition of compulsory food grain quota delivery system, where the likes of measures which is taken by the transitional government. Then, around in 1992, there was a new agricultural strategy were designed. That was ADLI, Agricultural Development, Led Industrialization. The development of agriculture will lead the development of industry in the country. That was the plan and the design during the EPRDF government. This strategy were consisting four different programs. the likes of ensuring accelerated economic growth through rural center development is one, ensuring accelerated economic growth to improve the living standard of urban dwellers. The other one, adopting effective educational strategy, preventing in the primary health care strategy, where the four major programs that we have in agricultural development led industrialization strategy. This was what we tried to see in the previous session. The definition of industrialization. Before that, student, about the historical development of industrialization in Ethiopia, just read your textbook. The historical development of industrialization in Ethiopia. The industrial sector is mainly classified into four different categories: manufacturing, mining and quarry, construction, water and energy supply. These are the major classification or subsectors of the industrial sector in Ethiopia. Let us see the definition of industrialization. Industrialization refers to the process of economic development in which resources are mobilized to produce goods and services, and mainly characterized by the dynamic nature of producing those goods and services for economic growth as a whole and achieving economic and social progress. This is what it means in general industrialization. Then we conclude that industrialization is not a one time or a sudden occurrence, but rather a sustained process. It's not a one time process or sudden occurrence. This is one of the major concepts in relation to its definition. Again, it requires the application of modern technologies to the production process. Modern technologies are implemented or applied at large during industrialization process. In the industrialization, manufacturing sector plays a great role, other than that of the other subsectors that we have in industry. Manufacturing plays a great role in the industrialization process. Then it brings about structural transformation of the national economy. Structural transformation from agrarian to industrial one. These are the major aspects in relation to the definition of industrialization. Arguments of industrial sector versus the rest of the economic sectors. Earlier, we have seen that what industrialization mean. In short, industrialization is the process which a non-industrialized country become industrial one. This is what it means in short. Now, let us see the various arguments. Arguments that give or clearly show the industrial sector development should be given priority over the other sectors. There are five basic arguments. Student, can you give your own justification or reason why we need to give priority for industrial sector than the rest of the other economic sectors, rather than giving priority for agriculture or service sector? Why we need to give priority for the development of industrialization? Try to give your own opinion or suggestion. Here are the five basic arguments why we need to give priority for industrial sector development. The first one is the development argument. When you say development argument, economic development more goes with the development of industrialization. More developed nations are better industrialized one. Whenever there is a development of industry, we produce more capital goods, capital items. This will further boost the production in the economy as a whole. So, development argument is one of the reason that we give priority for industrialization. We are not able to produce capital items in service, capital items in agriculture. Mostly in agriculture, in service sector, we produce consumer goods, goods that are used in daily consumption. It doesn't facilitate for the production of other commodities or other items. So development argument deals with the formation of capital. Capital formation will be very high, and that lead for the overall development. The other one is the employment argument. Here, we can say that the industrial sector has a great potential to create job opportunities for rapid growing population in the urban area, particularly in developing countries other than the other sectors. So, employment opportunity can also clearly show that we should give priority for industrialization or the industrial sector. The balance of payment argument. You can say a number of things here if you have the concept of the balance of payment from your previous grade. A developed industrial sector generate more foreign currency compared to that of agriculture or service sector. Industrialization help developing nations to reduce the balance of payment problem. Usually there is a trade deficit. We know that the case of trade balance in most developing countries. So the more we produce the capital items, more sophisticated technologies that will minimize the problem that we have in BOP or balance of payment. The linkage argument. Here, the development of the industrial sector creates strong linkage among the different sectors of the domestic economy. For example, agriculture. It creates strong linkage with agriculture to use local raw materials. This is called a backward linkage, if you remember from your Unit 1 discussion. The sector can also create a linkage with the market in order to assure market for its product. This is called a forward linkage. When the industrial sector supply its product to the market, it is a forward linkage. And when it takes input, use raw materials from the agricultural sector and other sectors as a source of input, that is a backward linkage. And the linkage is more high and greater, strong than that of the other economic sectors. The saving or surplus argument. Profit margin in the industrial sector are higher than that of the agricultural sector. You can take the real example in most developing countries. They produce capital items, capital goods, and they are more profitable in the market. And the profit margin is very high. Their surplus is very high. But those who produce agricultural product are not able to make such kind of profit margin. This may lead to higher level of saving if we engage in industrialization. So these 5 points are arguing that we should give priority for the industrial sector, the development argument, the employment, the balance of payment argument, the linkage argument, saving and surplus argument. All these arguments support the development of industrialization should be given priority than that of agriculture or service sector. The role of industrial sector in the Ethiopian economy. Student, is it true to say that the role being played by the industrial sector is greater than that of the agricultural sector? What is your answer? If you say true all fours, give one good reason that clearly shows your answer is correct. Output contribution. According to international standard for industrial classification, the manufacturing sector is characterized by the physical or chemical transformation of raw materials or components into a new product. Whether the work is performed by power-driven machine or hand, or whether it is done in factory or at home, it is manufacturing while we transfer physical or chemical features into a new product. In terms of output, the value added by large and medium scale industry subsectors in Ethiopia, the food and beverage industry group is the leading in terms of output contribution. For example, according to the Central Statistical Authority data, which is released in 2007 and 8, the contribution of the food and beverage industrial group were around 50.7%. Employment contribution. The industrial sector in general and the manufacturing subsector in particular serve as a major source of employment, especially for the rapid growing urban population in Ethiopia. When you look at the employment capacity of each industrial group in the manufacturing sector, according to the data in 2007 and 8, the food and beverage group employed around 50% of the employed persons. In the non-metal industrial group, around 14%, paper and printing industrial group, 10.9%. These were the leading in terms of employment contribution from the manufacturing subsector. These three industrial groups, the food and beverage, non-metal, paper and printing industrial groups together employed 75% of the total working force in the manufacturing subsector, according to the Central Statistical Authority data, which is released in 2007 and 8. Foreign exchange contribution. The poorly developed industrial sector of Ethiopia contributes very little to the foreign currency earning of the nation. The textile generates the largest contribution of foreign exchange. Food and beverage, leather and footwear are the second and the third, respectively. The pattern of the industrial sector in generating foreign currency has remained almost the same in recent years. It doesn't show significant change in the recent past. Okay, students, that's all for today. To briefly revise what we tried to see in today's session, we dealt with the industrial sector in Ethiopia and we tried to define what industrialization means. In the definition, we focused on the industrialization refers to the process of economic development in which all resources are mobilized to produce goods and services and mainly characterized by the dynamic nature of production and application of modern technologies. Industrialization is not a one time process or a sudden occurrence, rather, it is a sustained process and it requires the application of modern technologies. Manufacturing also play a great role in the industrialization process. Then it leads us to the structural change. This is the general concept in the definition of industrialization. Then we have dealt with the various industrial sector argument, why we need to give priority for the industrial sector. Development argument is there, employment argument, balance of payment, linkage argument, saving or surplus arguments are there, and we try to see them in brief. Then we briefly discussed the role of industrial sector in Ethiopian economy. In relation to the role of industrial sector, we have tried to see the output contribution, employment contribution, and foreign exchange contribution. This is all about what we try to discuss in today's short lesson video. Much is expected from you to read your textbook in detail. Okay, students, we wind up today's lesson with the following exercise. Do it carefully on your exercise book. Until we meet in the next lesson video, goodbye.